Live from clickorlando.com, this is News 6 at 5:30. This is a News 6 Plus takeover. Here now is Solutionaries.
Hey, welcome back to Solutionaries. I'm Louis Bolden. Solutionaries is a show where we take a look at the big problems and the people working to fix them. Today we're talking about jails and how they can turn into revolving doors for some offenders and a large expense for taxpayers. At least 1 in 4 people who go to jail will be arrested again within the same year. Many of those individuals are dealing with poverty, mental illness, or substance abuse. All problems that get worse with incarceration. So what's the solution? Well, one Florida city is trying something new.
$900. That's a lot of money when you think about it, even nowadays. And that's also about how much it costs every time someone is arrested for a misdemeanor here in Jacksonville. These are usually petty crimes. And the people who are being arrested are oftentimes in this cycle. They're homeless, they're living on the streets, dealing with mental illness, and they go to jail, then they get back out, they go to jail, they get back out. It seems like an endless cycle, right? We wanted to know, is there a solution to this? A solution that could potentially save taxpayers, us, money. Well, we found a very interesting program here in Jacksonville that identifies those people and works to get them on a path to success, to break that cycle. And those behind it say it's actually saving taxpayers money by keeping them out of jail.
All right, ready.
On a mission, these mental health professionals are hoping to solve some of Jacksonville's problems with homelessness and drug use, one person at a time.
The mental health offenders program has just been life-changing for so many people who are just stuck in this cycle of repeatedly getting incarcerated or repeatedly getting hospitalized.
Turn left onto West 27th Street.
James is a good example.
This team of a psychiatrist and social worker from the Sulzbacher Center is visiting a military veteran who'd fallen on hard times, struggling with substance abuse and schizophrenia.
I had problems with mental health, but I had to go to the hospital.
James spent much of this past decade without a place to live and without appropriate treatment. A downward spiral that resulted in petty criminal charges, again and again. How many times have you been to jail?
10 times.
10 times. What was that like?
Bad.
Yeah. What'd you get arrested for?
Trespassing, violation of probation.
His life started to turn around when local mental health workers saw him at the jail as a prime candidate for a new pilot program called the Mental Health Offender Program, or MHOP.
So initially for the pilot, we created a list. So on that list, we had about 220 names.
Dr. Colleen Bell is the lead psychiatrist for the program, which she helped create. Her team works with police, prosecutors, public defenders, and judges to identify people who need mental health and drug treatment, not a sentence behind bars.
We were targeting misdemeanor offenders, so people that had severe mental illness, as well as crimes like trespassing, more nuisance crimes, the people that we all agree don't belong in jail. They're not your career criminals. They're not violent. We've been able to help individuals. One individual was in jail on average every 10 days.
James went through the program and is now in aftercare. As part of that, he must continue to check in with the team, stay drug-free, and get those injectable medications to help manage his conditions. The social workers are helping him get his Social Security, as well as his veterans benefits and other welfare.
Hey, Magistrate Brady.
How are you doing?
I'm all right.
A big component is court. Magistrate Brooke Brady and another judge handle the MHOP program at the Duval County Courthouse.
So how's everything going on your own? I hear you're doing well.
They make sure that participants follow the rules and get the help that they need.
You've been doing okay?
Yep.
I heard you were negative on your drug screen. That's fantastic.
We watched your hearing. You showed a lot of mercy.
Yeah. So it's a very difficult population. We strive for progress, not perfection. Many of these people have come such a long way already.
Magistrate Brady says this seems to work incredibly well. getting people off the streets and into stable housing, cutting down on the small crimes, as well as jail and hospital costs. What has been the greatest success story?
We had a gentleman in our pilot program. He was arrested, I believe it was 97 times from 2017 until he came into our program. He was one of our first graduates of the program. He has not been rearrested. He's gotten his benefits.
Jacksonville's City Council allocated $600,000 for the project. The state of Florida appropriated another $700,000. That's a total of $1.3 million to run the program, for now. With this money, the program is expanding to 40 participants. That's still a small percentage of the more than 200 people that authorities have identified as eligible. The cost is relatively low, according to program leaders, who help participants apply for benefits, which offset their living, rehabilitation, and medical expenses. Some stay at the Sulzbacher, others at hotels, apartments, or group homes. The pilot started with 20 people whose arrests cost $362,000. Since entering the MHOP program, their bill was a much more manageable $12,000. It's been life-changing for participants like Corey.
Did you have a home?
No, I didn't have a home, no.
Where'd you sleep?
I sleep like really didn't go to sleep, but I slept like by some dinner places sometimes. Like Popeye cartoon.
He came into the program barely communicating. Now, he's grown and volunteers as a helping hand at the shelter.
You know, to see somebody that everybody else has sort of given up on and said, well, they're not going to be able to make it work in an assisted living or in their own apartment. We're the safety net of the safety net, and we're going to come in and we're going to say, no, this person deserves that chance. And to work with somebody like Corey and to see him blossom in the program, to see him want to give back. He wants to be here volunteering and watering our plants.
I know it's still super early on and we don't have that much data, but what we know so far is there are a lot of signs of success, some very promising results here, according to the researchers. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. We do have to point out that a lot of people either decide that they don't want to be in the program anymore, or they break the rules and after several chances are removed from it. So not every story is a success story, but it's the small victories. It's the people who do break that cycle, who do get a home, a job, a positive outlook on life that make everything worth it for those who work very hard day in and day out as part of this program. They say they hope to continue to grow, not just here in Jacksonville, but all across the country. Help people, save taxpayers money. For Solutionaries, I'm Vic Michelucci.
But what about solutions for people who are currently incarcerated and battling the cycle of addiction and relapse? Solutionaries at the Flagler County Jail say a new recovery program is helping. Eric Von Enken has a closer look.
Rachel is first.
It might be hard to believe.
I'm so proud of you.
But this is the biggest moment.
You can do this.
In years, even decades.
And I love you, girl.
For these women.
The most important place and what we focus on is where you're going to be when you're out there.
On this day, 2 are graduating and moving on from their old lives. Addicted to drugs, relapsing, and ending up here in the Flagler County Jail over and over.
I'm going to be living at a sober house. Well, not a sober house, but it is a sober house.
This time, they just finished 90 days in the jail's SMART program, Successful Mental Health and Addiction Recovery Treatment, which houses recovering inmates together in their own pod, living and learning from counselors and addicts turned teachers. Lindsay Scanlon has been arrested 7 times.
What you offer your inmates, your individuals, substance abuse treatment, mental health therapy, social skills, and job training skills. We are given opportunities of hope and healing.
So you want to be a peer specialist?
4 men are also graduating, soon to be released. And the jail chief, Daniel Engert, leads the ceremonies every 90 days.
It's an accountability measure for them. They don't want to let people down.
And every day in between, he's hands-on, getting to know the SMART inmates.
Stick to the plan, hit your marks.
Encouraging them.
Have you found that this graduation ceremony improves their chances of success once they get out?
I absolutely believe it does. You know, again, it shows that not only have they accomplished something, but it largely demonstrates everybody that's pulling for them.
Chief Engert says he's done around 10 SMART graduation ceremonies over the past year, and so far, 60% of the grads have stayed clean. That's compared to the 20% national average for other addiction recovery programs.
I've got a sense of pride again. I've got a sense of self, something that I was lacking when I came in here.
So I asked the chief, well, what about inviting family members? He says he liked the idea so much that from every graduation going forward, family will be invited to join in on the support. Inside the Flagler County Jail, Eric Von Anken getting results together. News 6.
That's a look from the inside of jail, but what about the men and women sworn to protect and serve?
Nobody ever asked us, are you okay? And it's the old, well, you know, this is our job, rub a little dirt on it, have a couple cocktails, go home and go to bed, and wake up tomorrow, come out slugging. It's just our job. Well, that's not really the way it is.
Coming up on Solutionaries, we explore how law enforcement officers deal with the mental health challenges that come with the job. Welcome back. I'm Louis Bold, and this is Solutionaries, a show where we highlight the challenges in our communities and those working to fix them. From violence to mental illness, law enforcement officers are often exposed to horrific situations and high levels of stress. So why are so many officers so reluctant to seek help for themselves? Trooper Steve Montiero sat down with a local sheriff to understand why.
You held a press conference, and it was pertaining to a pretty serious call that happened here in Volusia County, something I would define as the definition of tragic. Mm-hmm. Throughout that press conference, you're never short of words, but you said something that really stuck out to, I think, the community and to a lot of members of the media, that you were concerned about the mental health of your deputies.
My biggest concern out of all of this is the mental and physical health of my deputies and my dispatchers and the evac personnel that responded.
Talk to me a little bit about that.
You know, almost probably 85% of what we do when we respond to a call, there is some type of mental health issue going on that we're asked to deal with. Nobody ever asked us, are you okay? You know, I've been doing this over 35 years, and it's the old, well, you know, this is our job, rub a little dirt on it, have a couple cocktails, go home and go to bed, and wake up tomorrow, come out slugging. It's just our job. Well, that's not really the way it is. And I think when you look at the number of vets who kill themselves, when you look at the number of police officers who kill themselves, this is real. PTSD is real. And I think every administrator in the country, whether you're a sheriff or a police chief, it's incumbent upon us to do everything humanly possible to provide the resources to our folks that are out there, because you want them to retire in good mental and physical health. And it starts the day they walk through the door of that academy of doing everything you can to try to protect their mental health, give them the resources they need.
When it comes to pre-intervention and post after a call like this, what are you guys doing here at the sheriff's office?
Well, immediately that night, I saw snippets of the body camera footage. It was really difficult to watch. And I have a deputy trying to perform CPR on a 3-year-old who sustained massive head wounds. And the second deputy comes through the door and tries to help that. She's covered in blood. There is no way, whether they were 30-year players, I had one 30-year player there, or whether they were brand new with less than a year on the street. You could just tell by the sound of their voice, by looking at those snippets of body camera footage, by talking to the captain who was on scene, we got to get these people help and get them help now. Let's get them out of this situation. Let's bring our peer group. And that's the very first thing that happens is we have a peer group. It's made up of sergeants and deputies. There's 10 of them. It's run by a lieutenant.
So this is happening.
This happens within an hour.
Got it.
Within an hour, everything starts to settle down. We get them off the street, get them to a nice secure location, let them decompress, and then bring in their peers. And let's see how that works. Let's talk to them. Give them a couple of days off, follow-up phone calls, everybody's calling, everybody's checking on them. And then in the meantime, we have our HR personnel are scheduling a meeting with one of our psychologists. We have probably 5 or 6 psychologists that we contract with. And as a matter of fact, they're all going through that this week. But we avail that to them at all times, and we rely on the psychologist telling us. Because my concern is, having done this so long, the first 24 hours, the first 48 hours aren't really the problem. Right. It's the 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. What happens, God forbid, the next time they're on scene where a child has drowned, or there's a car crash, or something similar occurs? What happens with that PTSD? What does that bring back? And does it destroy their careers? Does it destroy their lives?
I've been in law enforcement 15 years myself, and there's always that one call, still to this day, I can close my eyes and I can put myself on scene. If you have a moment like that you're willing to share.
In over 35 years of policing, I have those incidents where I wake up in the middle of the night. There's 2 homicide scenes in particular, one involving a 6-year-old, one involving a 24-year-old medical student. And I don't know why, right, but there are certain things that just trigger that, but it's because it's seared in your memory.
Do you see having your own academy now more effective because you can almost begin the mental health training there and give them the tools before they show up here, but you're controlling it?
101%. We control what is going to happen. You are under our constant supervision for 28 weeks before you go out into field training. So we get to see you. We get to know who you are. Part of our culture is that. It's not only critical incident training on how to go out to a critical incident and deal with it, but it's what do you do for yourself? What is the health and wellness for yourself? How should you cope with this? How can you cope with this? What tools are there? And that's what you want to be able to do, is give them the outlet and the tools and the support. There's no stigma to asking for help. There's no stigma to feeling sad. And contrary to what anybody may tell you, and you know this too, there is crying in police work. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to show your emotions.
Do you feel sometimes there is a sense of holding back because they don't want to be taken away from what they feel their purpose is?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and this is going to be derogatory, but in my Philadelphia days, it was called the Rubber Gun Squad. That was the stigma that was attached. You know, if you talked about suicide, if you said any buzzword, you automatically seize his or her firearm and stick him in a room with the rest of the crazies. Right. And I think that we've gone beyond that now, but there still is that. If I were to go and say this, they're going to take my gun. And you know, my response to that is, and we talk about this all the time, that's not an embarrassment. You know, look at it as you're burned out and you need a break. You just need to see things in a different world. Because if you were a traffic homicide investigator and you came to me and said, or came to your supervisor and said, man, I cannot work another crash, we would move you to a place where you wouldn't have to deal with that as best as you can. Maybe we'll move you to narcotics. Maybe we'll move you to the detective division. Maybe we'll move you to school resource officer, because you served there well. Now part of that mental health is cycling through. And that's the other thing I think is important in an agency, is cycling people through these high profile, high stress things that are going to wear you down.
So for Sheriff Mike Chitwood, what do you do for your mental health?
I ride like a banshee, man. I ride my bike like a nut. I ride probably 250, 300 miles in a week. You know, I'm in the gym 4 days a week. I don't sleep well. Okay. Some of that is self-induced. Some of it is that the phone's constantly ringing, and you know, you're constantly on the move. You're constantly thinking about things. So for me, one of the stressors being a second-generation cop is my father was really into physical fitness. You know, he was a big runner. He was in the gym all the time. So I kind of learned from him that this was the best way to do it. And some of the people who I admired in the Philadelphia Police Department were triathletes, and you know, they're like, hey, this is the best thing to do, kid. You know, you got done working midnight to 8, it was a tough tour, go out and run 5 miles. Wow. And when you believe me, when it all comes out, you'll sleep a lot better. And they were right. There's things like that, you know, surrounding yourself with your family, getting out there and working out. And everybody's different. Somebody may be in the arts, right. You know, somebody may be in meditation. Right, you gotta have something outside of what you do.
As the head of this agency, what could you say to the community to almost allow them in, to show, hey, look, we're people too? We
hire from the human race. So those people in the community that we're talking about that have mental health issues, we're hiring those folks. There's mental health issues in their family, so we're no different. Just because you put a badge on, a magical thing doesn't happen to you, and you now become this superhuman being who doesn't have all of these issues. So there is that we're all in this game together.
Remember, there is always help out there. News 6 recently dedicated an entire day of coverage to mental health. If you or someone you know needs help, you can find resources on clickorlando.com. For Solutionaries, I'm Lewis Bolden. You can watch Solutionaries every Tuesday at 5:30 right here on News 6 or anytime on News 6 Plus.